Hello and welcome to the Consta webinar. So I'm Benjamin. Here with me is CCIE Master Zlatko, and today we're going to talk about what's new in Cisco network security, especially regarding the strategy and the latest solutions that Cisco has to offer. And, if we take a look through the agenda, so we will take a look at the latest updates from Cisco networking security portfolio. We will talk a bit about security challenges we see today, about safeguarding the end-to-end TLS encrypted traffic that we see. We will talk about new secure firewall features that Cisco has to offer, and regarding, we will also talk about the Cisco Secure Firewall 3100 series. So a few words about me. I'm Benjamin. I'm assistant engineer here at NIL since 2018. I mostly focus on the Cisco portfolio on security solutions that is on-prem and cloud. And now, please, Latko, the stage is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Benjamin. So welcome also from my side. My name is Latko Maric, and I work with NIL since 2016. And similar like Benjamin, I'm also mostly dealing with the Cisco security solutions, which is quite broad portfolio. And today we will talk about network security, and the firewall is main component of this solution. So about NIL itself, so NIL is located in Slovenia, and we joined Conša Group in 2019. And since then we are part of this big family. So Conša is dealing in the European place for designing and planning networking, cybersecurity, and data center solution. Currently, the Conša is present in 6 countries, and that being said, we have more than 1,000 employees, out of which there are more than 400 engineers, which brings a lot of knowledge and expertise into the solutions, which are then brought to you as our customer. Okay, so let's jump to today's session. So sometimes our last couple of years we could hear that the firewall is not so important anymore, and the firewall market is going down, but the trend is vice versa. Maybe just the flavor of the firewall is a little bit different, as we can see on this picture. Some trend which is not from the Cisco, but it's general trend, is saying that by the 2024 the firewall market will be growing. Just the flavor or the different version of firewall will be in place. If we are used to have traditional on-prem firewall in the hardware, this is now a little bit changed. The hardware is still here in the data center or in the edge of our network, but we are getting more and more virtual firewalls. We're getting more and more cloud delivered firewalls, and probably in the next years this will be growing like the picture is showing. So firewall is still quite important from the security perspective. Just a different version of firewall will be deployed at customer site. When we're talking about new challenges nowadays, of course, COVID brings some new challenges also for the customer as for ourselves. Hybrid work is still here, so even the COVID restriction is almost gone. Hybrid work still in place, and by saying that, we need to adopt our infrastructure. So a lot of TLS traffic is still present, and probably this will remain still in the future. Also, when we're talking about security, we could say that there are a lot of massive global attacks. A lot of traffic, or majority of traffic, is encrypted. So if we want to have some good visibility, we need to deal with the encrypted traffic, and we cannot protect what we cannot see. And we will see that Cisco is addressing also this kind of scenario to address majority of encrypted traffic and to build appropriate security policy. Of course, COVID brings also some unpredictable situation, especially regarding the hardware equipment, and also some challenges regarding the software, as the new security issues are being disposed every day. We need to have latest and greatest software versions, and Cisco is still doing a great job because the new software releases are coming quite fast, and within that releases we're also getting the new features, which are of course also intended for our customers. Additional challenge, which is also here, is adopting to the so-called multi-cloud environment. So again, we can see that IT leaders are already adopting to the cloud, and by saying that, we are having multiple cloud environments. So not necessary to have only one cloud provider, maybe having 2 or 3, and still having also our on-prem data center. And we need to bring all together so the communication is smoothly, and of course we need to have security policy on top of it. So times has dramatically changed. If you are used to have only one parameter to protect, so only our inside network, which was protected towards outside network, now we can say that we have multiple parameters to protect. So users are working hybrid, users are moving, so we have branch offices, we have some contractors and our vendors, we have our personal devices, so all of those parameters needs to be protected. And on the other side, we have applications which are not only delivered on our on-prem data center, but more and more of them are delivered in different cloud environments, so public clouds or our private clouds or some hybrid combination. And when we talk about those applications, we need to protect regardless where they are deployed. What is Cisco approach regarding the so-called multi-cloud and hybrid environment? Of course, we need to have firewall insertion if it is possible, regardless of if our application is hosted in public or private cloud, or as we are used to it in our on-prem data center. And where Cisco is going to is to have unified management across all those environments. So regardless where your firewall is deployed, public or private cloud or your on-prem data center, the management interface will be the same. So look and feel experience for the security policy deployments will remain the same regardless of the platform. And that's, of course, one of the greatest benefits, not having different management interfaces, but to manage everything from one place and to simply deploy security policy to different firewall flavors. Okay, so if we jump to the strategy, how Cisco is going to approach different scenarios. So I already mentioned on one side we will have users which will be placed differently, so they can be in headquarters, they can be in branch office, they can be at home. And on the other side we have applications which can be deployed in the cloud or in our on-prem data center. And of course, we need to protect those informations when the users are accessing to the application, and we will not know where the user will be tomorrow. So we need to address all those scenarios. And what Cisco also brings to us is so-called unified management and policy control, where the control plane will be extracted for the firewall itself. And by that, we will have unified policy to manage all our security policy from one place. Of course, we can heard a lot about machine learning, and this is also something which Cisco is also approaching. So based on EV engine, which will be also discussed today, we can get some useful information without doing decryption of encrypted traffic, and that information can then be taken into consider when we are building our security policy. So one of the benefits which Cisco can offer is different flavor of firewall. So we can have traditional firewall deployed in our on-prem location, so typical hardware, which is still quite a lot in use. We can deploy virtual firewall, so we can closely integrate our virtual firewall in our virtual infrastructure. We can even bring firewall in the cloud. So Cisco Umbrella is quite often in use recently, and it will be for sure in the future still deployed. And if you want to deploy firewall in the cloud, this is also possible. We already talked about application. So if you want to do some micro-segmentation within the application environment, we can also utilize so-called Cisco Secure Workload, which is formerly known as tetration. And what is also already available in Amazon Web Services is so-called firewall as a service. So all of those different flavors of firewalls are already available today. And on top of that, we will have unified management console for deploying and maintaining our security policy, which is, of course, one of the great features. By saying that, we can address different use cases. So we could address typical our data center use case scenario, maybe IoT environment, as I mentioned, zero trust micro-segmentation, or some kind of SaaS approach, which is also available with umbrella scenario. So how the firewall vision look like in the near future? So we will have firewall which will still be protecting from outside the network. So for example, if somebody from outside of our environment will be connecting to our internal application, we can still do classical decryption of the traffic, and between that, then we can do some deep packet inspection, doing EPS scanning or malware scanning or doing WAF. On the other side, if you move to the left side of the picture, I already mentioned umbrella. So umbrella will be a quite big player in the near future. And what can be done already today, we can integrate umbrella and our on-prem firewall to get feeds from umbrella, and that feeds then can be utilized for building our security policy. When we're talking about outbound connection, so going from our headquarter location to the outside network, we now have unified client, which is called secure client. And from that secure client, we can already utilize some useful information, like some fingerprinting of TLS session, FQDNs, parent process name, hash process, and so on. And that information can then be also feed to our firewall to build our security policy. What is already supported and available nowadays is so-called EVE engine. So EVE brings us visibility to the encrypted traffic without doing decryption, which is great because some applications are not allowing to do decryption, like Office 365, because they are sensitive if somebody is doing man in the middle. And EVE brings us visibility into encrypted traffic without doing any decryption. Or, for example, quick protocol, which is not even possible to decrypt. EVE engine again can do some visibility to detect when the quick protocol is in use. I already mentioned so-called secure workload. So if you move to the right corner of this picture, we have our application, and client, of course, are using our internal application. If we want to protect applications, we need to have something which can recognize micro application, which can recognize what application is doing, and secure workload is helping with us with that. And what is really great benefit that what secure workload is seeing within the application, this information can be fed back to the firewall, and then we can automatically build the secure policy based on the information what the security work has seen in the application itself. So this is really great feature. So everything can be then feedback to the management console, and security policy can be then built automatically. Another additional functionality which is also available today is so-called dynamic attribute connector, where we can again feed from different environments like VMware or maybe Amazon Web Services. We can feed information which are known from our virtual machines back to the firewall, and this can be done dynamically. And by saying that, policy is then deployed dynamically to the firewall to build new security policy with the new environment which was just brought up into the data center. So firewall will not be alone, let's say, in this story. It will get information from different sources in the network, and that information will be very useful to build our security policy. So for the execution strategy, as I mentioned, unified management, control, and policy will be one of crucial benefits. So building our security policy from one place. Security threat protection with the Snort 3, we are getting even more visibility in our encrypted traffic, and also with the EVA engine, we can get based on the machine learning, we can get some useful information to build our security policies also for the encrypted traffic. And future-ready platforms. So never mind where you want to deploy your firewall, Cisco can offer different flavors of firewalls which can be deployed safely in your environment. And integration is still one of the biggest power when you talk about Cisco environment, where you can simply integrate your firewall to the existing environment that you already have. So that was it from my side. I will pass ball to Benjamin, and now Benjamin will introduce some functionalities on the firewall itself.
So thank you, Zlatko, for this great overview. So if we jump now to a few specifics that we'll talk about. First of all, I would like to say a few words regarding the security challenges that we are seeing today, right? So we see more and more encrypted TLS traffic, and the decryption paradox is because TLS was specifically designed to ensure that malicious actors could not interfere with the communication between client and the server, right? But on the other side, if we want to have visibility into that kind of traffic, we need to unpack the packets to see into that packet. So our firewall must play a role as a man in the middle, actually, right? So it's always a game here regarding visibility in the TLS traffic for the security purposes. So on the one hand, so usually what we do is we have a firewall interfering in the TLS communications. So one session from the TLS client, when the TLS client wants to set up a session to the server, it's actually being interfered, and session is being terminated on the firewall, and another session is going from the firewall to the TLS server, and that's the way that the firewall can see into those packets, into the traffic, and it can do some additional reviewing of the session itself, like it can do snort processing, EPS inspection, etc. Right? And the problem is because we have more and more applications that have different features that are disabling this man-in-the-middle processes, as also Zlatko already mentioned. So we have, let's say, banking applications that are using certificate pinning that don't allow firewalls to interfere into that communication. It's just being resetted and tried to set it up again. Then we have the DNS over HTTPS. Then we have encrypted client hello procedures. And we also have this new protocol called QUIC that we'll just talk in a bit. So what can we do regarding this kind of traffic encrypted? So one, of course, we have one option just to block that any kind of that traffic. But of course, if we have our finances that are using a lot of banking, let's say, applications that use certificate pinning, we can, on the new Cisco firewalls, on the FMC, we can determine, let's say, that our users can use the pinned certificate applications, but for specific applications of, let's say, some of the banking companies that banking applications are using, and we can block other certificate pinning applications for security reasons. And it's the same way we can do that for DNS over HTTPS traffic and encrypted client hello. As regarding the QUIC, as you know, the QUIC was a protocol specially designed from the Google teams. So the main focus was that the communication between the client and the servers should always be authenticated and encrypted, and it should be really optimized for best user, so it's seamlessly for user to use on that application. And that's why Quick is using UDP stack, so it's not using TCP, so it's using UDP 443. And as we know, you cannot reset a UDP stream on the firewall. You can just block it, right? But you cannot reset the stream and try to take a look into it. And Quick can also manage to migrate between IPv4 and IPv6 addressing during a single Quick session. So that's really kind of hard to catch all of this traffic traversing through our firewall. And the current industry consensus for most of the firewall vendors is to just block Quick, right? If it's not really required for our users, and the website should hopefully fall back to the using same good old HTTPS TLS sessions, and we can have better security over there. But if we have some scenarios when users are using Quick and actually need to use it, right? Cisco have a great feature, as Zlatko already mentioned. It's called Encrypted Visibility Engine, if shortly, right? And it can process and detect malware in encrypted traffic, and it doesn't need to interfere regarding the sessions itself. So it can do that based on the headers and what information it's stored there that it can see. So if we take a look at the procedures that encrypted visibility engines is using. So usually in a TLS session, we can only see, let's say, TLS client hello. That's the only thing, and also we can also have some encrypted info also there, but we can only see a few TLS cipher suits being offered and being arranged. Other than that, we can also see a destination IPs and maybe the destination FQDN, so the DNS destinations, but nothing much more, right? And Cisco started to develop this for a few years now, and based on the big data analysis that they are doing on on all different kinds of traffic regarding this, how this TLS encrypted traffic is using these headers, Cisco can quite certain determine what kind of process is generating this traffic, what kind of operating systems is behind it, what kind of course, destination is in the traffic itself. That's of course seen, and it can also provide us information regarding how possible, how sure the Cisco is that this is the process that's really going on under the hood of this communication. And all of this is seen by not decrypting the traffic itself. It's just seen based from headers. And if we look at some, let's say, some of the scenarios, so we can actually have a same TLS fingerprint of the headers itself, but based on the just destination and the domain, we can also determine if it's a legitimate process that is going to, let's say, Office 365 and similar, or if it's malicious traffic that is going to some malicious destination that we don't want our users to use or go to. And based on that, we can, for the same TLS fingerprint, we can block some traffic and allow other kind of traffic, actually. And if we look at the event viewer, so on the FMC, we have as you know, event viewer that we can view all of the logged events that are passing through our firewalls. We can see in the event viewer now we have a few new columns regarding the if functionality. So we have process confidence. So it's how sure are we that this is really process going behind the scenes. We have a process name, so we have a name of the process. In our case, this is a Tor browser. Then we have encrypted visibility threat confidence. So based on the destination that it have, how is that a threat to us or not? For, let's say, from the general database. It can be low to high, right? In our case, it's very low. There's a threat confidence score also. So how sure are we that this is a very low confidence? It's 0% sure. So we don't know if it's a threat or not. And we see also the client application itself from the AVC. We see that this is a Tor application. And how is that all the information determined? It's determined from this TLS fingerprint. And based on these 5 parameters, we can actually set up policies. So let's say if our users are using a Tor browser, it can of course be used for malicious purposes, but it can also be used maybe for some legitimate purposes also. They can use it, but if they are using it, if we're 80% sure that they are using well-known, good reputation destination sites, right? But we can block it if there are unknown or known malicious destination sites. So that's a quite a powerful use case to not decrypt all of the traffic that we had on our firewall. So on one side, we don't put so much pressure on the CPU or on firewalls making all the EPS checkups. And on the other side, we can quite safely determine some of the traffic that we cannot actually interfere with, and we can determine if to block it or not, right? And if we take a look at the few new secure firewall features that Cisco is bringing up to the table, one is, as also Zlatko mentioned, it's a new feature called Dynamic Attribute Connector. So what's the point of using this dynamic connector? As we know today, we're using a lot of public cloud services such as Office 365, different public services on AWS, on Azure, etc. And a lot of these public services that we are using also have different, so the public IPs that these services are being offered to us often change, right? And in order for us to have a constant strict policy, we usually need to put all those WAN IPs into the tables that we allow and block all the others besides the DNS, of course, destinations. And because this is constantly changing on the provider side, this is one of the use cases for dynamic attribute connector that it kicks in. So it constantly it constantly listens to and checks the changes of the WAN IPs on the public cloud provider side, and it dynamically pushes this information to our FTD via the API, and it can and we don't even need to redeploy the policies, because as we know, when we do some changes, we need to deploy it in order to have the policy in place from our FMC management to the firewall. And in this case of dynamic attribute connectors, it's a dynamic object actually in our FMC and in FTD, and it's constantly practically up to date. So it's a cool feature to look into if you're using a lot of public cloud services. And this feature is offered on the on-prem and the cloud FMC. So it's supported on both cases of FMC, and we'll talk about cloud FMC in a bit. Okay, so this is the communication I was talking about. So in order to have a dynamic attribute connector in place, we need to have a connector on the provider side, and then we need to have a controller on our side. It can be also in some our private infrastructure in the public cloud, or it can be on-prem in the vCenter. And this connector then communicates to our FMC via the REST API and pushes all the information regarding the IP address and the name, and the domain name changes to our adapter, and adapt our policy on the spot. Another good feature that we have from 7.3 on regarding the AnyConnect secure endpoint clients, it's a VPN AnyConnect geo visibility. So actually we can now see from which countries our AnyConnect users are connecting to our VPN, to our firewall the headquarters, right? And it's a quite useful tool for troubleshooting and other purposes. That's actually a picture from one of our customer sites. As you see, most of the users are being held from Slovenia and Croatia, and there's a few users going from Italy, Sicily, and Serbia, and so on. And another cool feature that is coming also with the new 7.3 FTDs and FMCs, it's a performance profile configuration. So what's the main advantage of it? So we will talk also today about new Firepower 2100 series, but this performance profile configuration is actually when it actually comes handy when we are setting up a new configuration. We know if the firewall is going to be an edge firewall protecting north-south traffic and terminating VPNs, or is it going to be a data center firewall, to check out east-west traffic and do a lot of EPS inspection on it, let's say. And based on the based of our target firewall, if it's going to be an edge or DC firewall, we can set up a profile for it. So we can say that it's going to be an edge firewall, it's going to do a lot of VPN heavy lifting, it's going to terminate a lot of VPN traffic. So we should allocate, let's say, 90% of CPU cores to the data plane and just 10% to the snort, because we'll do a snort or other EPS inspection in the back with other firewall appliances. Or if it's going to be a data center firewall and we're going to do a lot of EPS inspection there, we can set it up that the CPU will allocate just 30% for other, so the 30% of course will be on the data plane, but most CPU, 70% will be allocated to do snort inspections. And now if we jump to the new Secure Firewall 2100 series, it's a pretty new series from that Cisco offers today. Actually, one main really good thing about 2100 series, it have combined FXOS and the FTD or ASA image in one image. So regarding the upgrades, it's really easier to do it as opposed to 4000 series. And it can get to really serious high throughputs, such as 10 gigs and more. So 3100 series, we have basically all of the available appliances have in the front. We have like 8 RIOT 45 normal Ethernet connectors, and then we have 8 SVP plus up to 10 gig connectors. And if we want to add more physical connections to our firewall, we can add an extra network module in it. And also the back is modular, so we can have 1 or 3 power supply unit. We can have modular fans based on our needs and configuration. And the most important thing is the hardware was designed to really accelerate this snort 3 and the EPS processing on the one hand, and it's also designed to offload. If we do, let's say, a fast path of the traffic, it can actually offload that traffic directly through the hardware. It doesn't go to any of the modules that we're used to on the FTDs or ASAs. And basically this new 3100 series can support up to 9 times performance of when terminating the VPNs, and up to 3 times performance if we're talking about snort and EPS inspection. And if we take a look at one test that was done on EMIX traffic by Cisco in the labs, if we compare the old 2140 series, that was kind of big firewall, right, as opposed to the smaller one on the 3000 series, 201 and 10. If we are expecting, so if the tests were done on the byte size of 730 byte packets, and on the speed on 300 megs, and if we were inspecting 100% of all the TLS traffic, the CPU load on the 2100 series was more than it was around 70-80%, right? But if we take a look at the 3110 series, it was just around 20%. So it's really, so the impact is really, it's a really bigger impact on the older 2000 series than on the new hardwares. And if we take a look at the few numbers here on the 3100 series, we have a few customers already here in Slovenia that's using 3110. Then we have 20, 30, 40, and then new in the game is also the 3105. And basically, if a customer needs are to use at least 10 gigabits uplinks, practically any of these series can be effective. So it can handle up to 10 gigs per second of traffic with when it has turned on firewall, AVC, and EPAS, so snort engines. And of course, it also get virtual routing and forwarding. You can do that on all of the series, and of course, you have other good features to use as well. And the last thing that we also want to check or to touch is the Cloud Deliver FMC. I don't know if you heard it, so most of us are using the on-prem virtual or hardware FMCs for our customers, but now we can also actually use Cloud Deliver FMC, and we have a few flavors of that. So on the left side, if we take a look, so how does it work? You have an FTD on-prem, and it can be and it's communicating via SV tunnel as normally on-prem, but it communicates directly to the Cloud Deliver FMC in the Cisco data centers available also in Europe. And actually, you can do a lot of configuration through there, but if you want to have your event management or to log events stored on-prem, you are still using the on-prem FMC just for troubleshooting and event viewing purposes. But on the other hand, you can also push all of your events directly to the cloud, FMC. So, and one good thing regarding the using cloud FMC as a whole, so just to use it in cloud, is because you as you know, on the private, so on the on-prem FMC, usually on virtual appliances, we have up to 50 million logs available, and then after that, the logs are gone, right? So if we don't have some external logging capabilities, if we have a lot of traffic, we have just for a few days a week. We are viewing our traffic. If we want to look our traffic for 1 week ago, we usually cannot see it. But if we're using a Cloud Deliver FMC, we can have logs stored for 1 month, 2 months, maybe also even half year back, based on the packages that we are subscribed to. And when we're thinking about Cloud Delivered FMC, if we want to go there, there's a quite nice feature regarding the wizard that helps us migrate our on-prem FTDs. So from management on the on-prem FMC to the cloud FMC as well. And we can do that. Let's say in this case, we can retain on-prem FMC for events, or we can push also all the events to the Cloud Deliver FMC. And the unified event viewer, its look and the feel is practically almost the same as on-prem FMC, with this exception, of course, that we can go back for a month or two to look at the past events that we need to look at. Okay, so I have also come to the end of the presentation, and now me and Zlatko will jump to the Q&A section. So we'll check out now if there are any questions. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Also from my side, I think if there is no other question, probably we can close the session. We can wait maybe for additional minute or two. But yeah, that's it. Maybe just for the conclusion, if you are in doubt, if you want to replace ASA with a FTD or not, all the functionalities or all the things which were mentioned today you need to know that this is only supported on the FTD, right? So ASA is still, let's say, only layer 4 firewall. And if you want to utilize those functionalities which were introduced today, then the only option is to go for FTD, right? Because those integrations, those nicely stuffs, which I talked about it, so getting feeds from different parts of your network, this now is supported only on the FTD, right? And EVS, Node 3, and everything what is related to that, the packet inspection, then you need to go to the FTD, of course. So yeah, I think there is no more question. So yeah, thank you again for your attendance, and hope we will see on the next webinar.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.